It was late at night, when I was walking down the street after classes as I had missed my last bus back home. I had to walk back, as I had no other choice. The streets can get quite creepy at night, especially when you are on your own. As I was walking, I saw this very mysterious house. You might wonder why I am saying this. Let me tell you why. It was brightly lit even though this house has been vacant for a very long time. I was curious and crept down the concrete path towards the door. The door creaked and opened on its own as I stood by it. I peeked in. It looked as if there were 1,000 rooms inside. I wanted to see more. As I stood there and looked, I didn't know where to start. My curiosity got the better of me, and I started with the door closest. The hinges were rusty and they creaked as I opened it. It was really scary. Wait, was there someone in there? I didn't dare go further. By then, I felt a chill run down my spine, and felt hands on my shoulder pushing me into the room. I screamed. It was too late. I fell down and heard the door shut behind me. The room plunged into darkness and became very quiet except for my heavy breathing. I tried getting up, but something was holding me down. I cried, "Help!" but my voice was just not coming out. I managed to get to my feet, and tried to unlock the door, but to no avail. There was a presence in the room but no one was there. I decided to be brave, and said, "Hello, hello," but all I heard was my echo. I was trying to unlock the door when suddenly, I heard this loud screeching voice. I turned and standing behind me was this dark figure. It had piercing red eyes that just looked through me. I screamed and the next thing I knew, it was so close to my face I could smell its breath. It smelled of raw meat and blood. I managed to turn and tried to run, but my feet couldn't move. I felt the hands wrap itself around me and it felt so cold that I couldn't breathe. I started gasping for air and tried to free myself from this thing. I cried out in pain as its arms squeezed tighter. I felt its hands on my throat. Oh help! But my voice was gone. I was struggling, trying to get away and must have fainted from all that exhaustion because, next thing I remember, I was waking up and finding myself back outside the house. I ran all the way home and I don't know how but I got home. No one would believe me so this remains with you and me. My warning to you, watch out for house number 1 on Headless Drive.
Car keys. One night, a father and his daughter were driving down a deserted country road. They were returning home after spending the entire day visiting the girl's mother in hospital. Listening to the sound of the rain drumming on the car roof, the girl began to doze off. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The father struggled with the steering wheel but the car skidded off the wet road and slammed into a stone wall. After checking that his daughter was uninjured, the man got out of the car to survey the damage. Both of the front tires had large punctures and the right fender was crumpled against the wall. The rest of the car had survived unscathed. "We must have driven over something on the road," he explained to his daughter. "Whatever it was, it blew out both of the tires." "You can fix it, right?" asked his daughter, somewhat shaken by the accident. "No," replied her father, shaking his head. "I've only got one spare in the boot. I'll have to walk back into town and find somebody to tow the car," he said. "It isn't that far from here. You wait in the car while I'm gone." "Okay," she said, reluctantly. "But please don't take too long." The man could see in his daughter's eyes that she was frightened. "Sit tight," replied her father as he slammed the car door. "I'll be back as soon as possible." His daughter watched him in the rearview mirror as he trudged off down the road in the pouring rain and disappeared into the night. More than an hour passed and her father still had not returned. The girl began to wonder what was taking him so long. She was very worried because he should have been back by now. Just then, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a figure in the distance, walking towards the car. At first, she thought it was her father, but when she turned around to take a closer look, she realized that it was a strange man. He was dressed in overalls and had a big bushy beard. He was carrying something large in his left hand, swinging it back and forth. Something about him made her very nervous. As he approached, she stared out the back window and squinted her eyes. In the dim light, she could just make out what he was clutching in his right hand. It was a big, sharp butcher's knife. Thinking quickly, the terrified girl locked both doors in the front of the car, then jumped into the back seat and locked the rear doors. When she looked up again, she saw that the strange man had stopped in his tracks and seemed to be staring directly at her. Suddenly, the man raised his arm and the girl let out a blood-curdling scream. In his left hand, he was clutching her father's severed head. She just kept screaming and screaming. She couldn't stop herself. Her heart was pounding and she struggled to breathe. The grotesque expression on her father's face was horrifying to behold. His mouth was hanging open and his eyes were rolled back in his head. When the man reached the car, he shoved his face right up against the window and glowered at her with his crazed, bloodshot eyes. His hair was wild and matted with dirt. His face was covered in deep scars. For a moment, he just stood there, in the driving rain, grinning at her like a madman. Then, he reached into his pocket, took something out and slowly lifted his left hand. He was holding her father's car keys. Clap. Clap. One day, a young married couple went hiking in the mountains. As the sun began to set, they realized that they were lost. The wife was getting worried, but her husband tried to calm her down and assured her that they would eventually find their way back to their car. However, after walking for hours, they still had no idea where they were. It was growing dark and the man and wife were getting desperate. They didn't have a map or a compass with them and all of the trees looked the same. Just when they were about to give up hope, they came across an old cabin in a clearing. The cabin looked as if it had seen better days. It was dilapidated and seemed like it hadn't been used in a long time. Some of the windows were cracked and broken, and a lot of the tiles had fallen off the roof. The husband knocked on the front door, but there was no response. When he turned the handle, it slowly creaked open. Inside, they found it was in a bad state of disrepair. There was very little furniture and the floor was covered in a thick layer of dust. As the couple cautiously looked around, they noticed a strange atmosphere and a peculiar musty smell. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with graffiti. Written in red paint, the words, "Death, Death, 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 Death," were repeated over and over again. The man and woman were unnerved. With a shaking hand, the husband reached out to touch the wall. He was horrified to find that the paint was not yet dry. The couple were very frightened, but they had nowhere else to go. They knew that the mountain was dangerous at night and there were lots of wild animals prowling the woods. Despite the creepy writing on the walls, they decided to stay the night. Going upstairs, they found a moth-eaten mattress that was covered in stains. The husband and wife wrapped themselves in an old piece of carpet to keep warm and tried to make themselves as comfortable as possible under the circumstances. They lay down together on the mattress and eventually managed to fall asleep. Sometime after midnight, the couple were awakened by a strange rustling noise. It sounded like someone or something was moving around outside the shack. "Did you hear that?" asked his wife. "I think there's somebody out there." Her husband listened for a while, but he didn't hear anything. He got out of bed and walked over to the window. It was too dark outside to see anything. Opening the window, he stuck his head out. "Who's there?" he called nervously. There was no answer. He was about to go back to bed when his wife said, "Maybe it's someone who can't speak." The husband returned to the window and said, "Is there anybody out there? Clap once for yes and twice for no." He strained his ears to listen. The stars twinkled in the night sky. The crickets were chirping loudly. All of a sudden, he heard a loud clap. The man turned to his wife and said in surprise, "You were right. There's someone out there." He leaned out the window and his eyes scanned the darkness. He couldn't make out anything in the pitch black. "Are you the owner of this cabin?" he asked. Clap. Clap. "Are you a man?" Clap. Clap. "You're a woman, then?" Clap. Clap. "Are you human?" Clap. Clap. A chill ran down his spine. He swallowed hard and croaked, "Did you come here alone?" Clap. Clap. "How many are with you?" Clap once for each person. Clap. 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 Clap.